Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of the Anime Banter podcast with your host, Turtle, Sean, and Mike. Thank you for joining us today. How are the two of you doing?
Doing great. Really happy to have made it to the end of the year. I love where we are with the podcast. I like what we've done with the podcast. I'm looking forward to another year of bantering about anime. How about you, Turtle?
Also, I'm hoping everyone had a great holiday season, as this is, I believe, going to be posted in 2024. Woo! But yeah, I've been looking forward to doing this episode. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to have fun recording it, and I hope you listeners have fun listening to it.
It's our year-end special that's coming out at the start of the new year. But with that said, we figured with Christmas in the books and New Year's in the books, it's 2024 now. We thought we would have a special banter blitz today, and that being our banter of the year. And with that, we shall start with our retrospective and ranking of the shows we watched in 2023 for the podcast. In the number 8 slot, Turtle, you're number 8.
My number 8 show, the bottom of the barrel of this particular list. I don't think it will come as a shock. It is Vending Machine. I don't remember the entire title. It's too long. Compared to everything else that we have watched, this is by far and away the easiest pick as worst. Like the animation was bad, the premise was bad, everything was just sort of bad. So definitely the worst thing that we saw. And I assume you listeners, if you tuned out, we were sorry that we drove you away, but I guess you didn't really miss anything because it's bad. Yet it's getting a season 2. What the hell?
Sean, you're number 8.
All right. So there's one thing you'll learn if you haven't listened by now is that I kind of have trash taste. However, I will say that my number 8 show is also Reborn as a Vending Machine. I Now Wander the Dungeon. I wanted to put it higher. I just looked at the other shows we watched and I'm like, yeah, every single one of these is better. So, yeah. We're going to head over to you, Mike.
So I actually don't have a number 8 because I did not watch Netflix One Piece because that's when I was at Gen Con for the year. So my number 8 is a blank. Part of me wanted to do a troll bit and say Netflix One Piece just to like, let the hate flow through y'all, hate me. But no, my number 8 is a blank. Turtle, your number 7?
My number 7 is going to be Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. I liked most of the other shows that we watched a little bit more than this. Not to say that I dislike this. It is leagues better than Vending Machine could ever hope to be. I enjoyed it. It was a fun little time. I just don't think it was as good as some of the other stuff that I watched for the show here.
That's what we call the power gap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Where
Yes.
you're like 7, power gap 8.
Yeah.
Like you said, leaps and bounds better. For my number 7, I picked Star Wars Visions Volume 2. I like Star Wars, but I don't love Star Wars in a lot of cases. And what's hard for me with Visions is that they're just a bunch of one-off anecdotes that don't necessarily connect, and it's harder for me to enjoy all of the episodes. I love the concept, different animation studio, but we also watched a lot of really good shows this year. So I have to put something at 7. Once again, it's like a power gap, right? Between 7 and 8. So I'm going to give it to Star Wars Visions Volume 2. Still good content, just doesn't suit my tastes particularly.
My number 7 is Reborn as a Vending Machine. I Now Wander the Dungeon.
Oh yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, one of the longest names ever. It was hilarious making Sean have to read that every time.
Oh, I said it too.
You did. I give you mad props.
Yeah, that was a rough one to host.
It had its moments, but compared to everything else we watched this year, it's hard to be like, oh yeah, that's great. I would love to go back and watch that again. Or even like recommend it to a friend to watch. I feel like everything else that we watched, I feel is very easy to recommend to someone. But Vending machine. Yeah, no. We can give it props though for being the first thing to have Turtle bust out the anime ranter.
Yeah.
That is true. And with a season 2 on the way, I could be using that a lot more if we decide to cover it.
Turtle, you're number 6.
My number 6 for the year is going to be Star Wars Visions Volume 2. I love Star Wars. Anytime there's a new Star Wars anything that comes out, I want to watch it because I just want to see the addition story to the universe. I love the universe as a whole. There are things that I like more than others, that's for sure. But Visions is a cool little fun project, but it does not connect to the world. They're just little stories done by different studios, so they all have different visuals. They're all doing their own thing. It's fun to watch. I prefer the connective tissue that tells a larger story. I like that. I like to dive deep into, lore and, telling these stories and how they connect. And even if they're hundreds of years apart, there's still little connective tissue that link things together. I really like to dive deep. There's no connective tissue whatsoever here. They're fun stories to watch, but even though it's Star Wars, and it definitely felt like Star Wars, it doesn't connect to anything. So I'm putting it at number 6.
Sean, you're number 6.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna pick Trigun Stampede. I like the show, but they kind of stripped everything away from Vash that made him such a fun and lovable, like endearing character, and it made the show really dark. Well, I do appreciate that it's not just a carbon copy of the original. Um, it just didn't speak to me to the level that I hoped it would. Still a good show, but compared to the other things we watched this year, it just lands at number 6 for me.
My number 6 is Star Wars Visions Volume 2. Sort of like what Turtle was saying. I liked it, and how with it being so far out, like there are small things I remember from that show, but I can't tell you like what happened in one episode from start to finish. And those episodes weren't that long. I really liked some of the animation. I liked some of the stories they told, but it wasn't very memorable. And I'm not saying it needs to have the characters from the movies to be memorable. Just I don't know. It didn't click as much as I hoped it would. And the animation studios I felt in Volume 1 were more anime based. It seemed like in Volume 2 they wanted to make it more like worldwide, where in Volume 1 it was we are getting 7 anime studios to do these episodes or however many they had to do them, and there were a couple that felt anime but not like a ton. I know like the claymation episodes I was not a huge fan of. So yeah, liked it. I hope they do a volume 3 just because I like the concept of Star Wars Visions, and I hope it continues, especially because it gets some small studios a lot of publicity. But yeah, at the end of the day, it didn't touch the rest of my list. Turtle, you're number 5.
Number 5 was kind of a tough one for me to place, but I ended up going with Vinland Saga. Um, I liked Vinland Saga. I'm excited to do season 2. Hopefully, we'll do that for the show because I definitely want to get into it. I've been holding off in case we do cover it. It is really slow at times, which kind of bores me. But when it's firing at all cylinders, and it's really good. So I went with Vinland Saga for my number 5 pick.
Sean, you're number 5.
Number 5 for me was Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Uh, I like the show. I I don't really know what else to say about it. It was a good alternate retelling of the original, and more updated version. And it wasn't a perfect show. I like Scott Pilgrim. I saw the movie, but I didn't consume all the source material, and I never played the video game, so I'm not quite as into it as some other people might be. So for me, it was good, but not great, and that it falling kind of in the middle of my list fits pretty well.
My number 5 is Trigun Stampede. I don't have the nostalgia that you two do with the original Trigun. Never seen the original Trigun, as we discussed multiple times while watching it, but I thought it was really neat. I am looking forward to the next season whenever it might come out. I'm excited to see where it goes. There were some fun moments, but from what the two of you were saying about the original, it seemed like we lost some of that lightheartedness of it. So maybe we'll see that in season 2. But I thought it was cool. I really liked the animation for it. That's still probably my favorite opening song of all the shows we watched. Thought that was an absolute banger of an opening song. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next with Vash, but it was hard for me to get it higher than 5. Turtle, you're number 4.
Number 4 for me, I'm going with the Netflix One Piece. I've said multiple times, I'm pretty sure, on the podcast here just by talking about it, and we did the whole Blitz episode on it. I never expected this to be good at all. That this like I expected it to be absolutely horrible, and I was, gonna watch it with like my hands over my eyes, just peeking through to see the god awfulness that it was, and it was not. It was amazing. I was surprised at how good it turned out to be. Only for us to get an announcement for a season 2, which has me even more excited. So I got to give it number 4 for me is the Netflix One Piece live action. It was way better than I was expecting.
My number 4 is Chainsaw Man. Between 4 and 5 for me is kind of another power gap. So like between 7 and 8 power gap, 4 and 5 power gap. I enjoyed our remaining 4 series all immensely, and it was really hard for me to rank them. But I'd put Chainsaw Man at number 4. This is one of those series where like I really enjoyed the ride so far, but I really want to see where the next season goes. And I felt like Chainsaw Man, like I said, very good show. Just liked the other, the remaining ones a little more. So I don't have anything bad to say about it. It's just it's a new IP for me, and I'm looking forward to consuming more. But yeah, this one got a thumbs up for me. Just number 4.
I had a hell of a time ranking my top 4. There I kept changing it. Like every time I would jot it down, I'm like, nah, let me reorder. And my number 4, and it pains me to say this because I so wanted it to be my number 1 just because of how much I love the IP. But my number 4 is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. And that isn't to say that it's a bad show. It's more saying how good my top 3 are, more so than that. Had we not watched my top 3, Scott Pilgrim would have been my number 1. The fact that they got all the original voice actors back, or all the original actors back to do the voices, the neat retelling they did to modernize it, the music they brought in, everything was fantastic. So it pains me to say it's my number 4, but that's not to say that I hated it at all. Um, it honestly, my top 4 could be a 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, honestly. But Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is my number 4. We enter the top 3. Turtle, what's your 3?
My number 3 is going to be Trigun Stampede. Part of it is nostalgia for the original show because I love it to death. It's one of my favorite like 90s anime. When I'm in the mood to go back in the Wayback Machine to watch something, I often look at that on my shelf and go, "Yeah, it's time to give this another watch." So part of it's nostalgia, but part of it is also like the different retelling. The opening theme is an absolute banger. It's a great track. I have gone on to listen to that like on YouTube while I'm doing something else, which is rare for me to pull up an anime opening to just rock out to. That song I pulled up a few times and heard it outside of watching the show. The animation, oh my goodness, CG animation has been kind of shaky at best to good lord, what was that? This show looks great. So I'm very excited for season 2. I want to see where they go with the story, see if they bring in more elements from the original, some new characters, some old characters that they didn't do much with season 1. So I'm excited to see where it goes. But overall, I liked it. A little bit darker. Uh, yeah, I'm giving it my number 3, and I'm excited for more.
Sean, you're number 3.
My number 3 is the Netflix One Piece. Never did I think I would put anything One Piece this high. The Netflix One Piece was extremely enjoyable for me as a person who's only really ever watched the first arc of One Piece back when it was the 4 Kids dub. So as a reintroduction to the series, I thought this was phenomenal. They gave everyone an anime look without it looking too cheesy. The stretchiness did not look bad at all for Luffy. Like really, they hit a home run with this, and season two can't come soon enough. Though knowing Netflix, it probably won't drop till like 2027, and all the characters are going to be, you know, all the actors are going to be too old to play their characters. But whatever. Anyway, Netflix One Piece. If you haven't watched it, I highly suggest it.
My number 3 is Vinland Saga. I love this show. Um, I think the thing that held it back from going higher were is the peaks and valleys in the pacing. How we would have a bulk of episodes that were amazing, and it felt like so much happened, and then we would have episodes that were so slow that's like, why was this necessary to put in there? Like, could we have not put any other story content in? The Anne episode steps out, like, really stands out. Like, why did we need that episode? But I mean, I feel like that still had some of the best action in the shows that we watched. It had some of the best characters of the shows we've watched. Yeah, so I really liked Vinland Saga. I'm very excited to watch season 2. I hope we cover it for the podcast because season 1 was so, with how season 1 ended, I'm very much looking forward to season 2. Turtle, you're number 2.
Number two for me, Chainsaw Man. Was a total unknown. That was the first thing that we covered here, on the podcast. I had no idea what this was. I had not heard of it before, and I was just really blown away. It's different, Was it Mappa Studios? They've gone on to do, several other things now. Um, but this was one of their earlier shows, I believe. Fact check me, let me know if I'm wrong, because I don't know that much about Mappa. I know they work on a couple shows now, but this was a total unknown for me. I didn't know what to expect, and I really enjoyed it, and I really wanted a season two. And I think we're finally going to get one, or at least a continuation of some sort. So I'm excited. I want more. Let's go.
I at number two. It's wild that I'm the first one to mention this one. It just shows how good the movie is. Jujutsu Kaisen Zero. This movie was absolutely wild. They could have made the Jujutsu Kaisen show after the characters in this movie. Like if the whole show is following this set of characters, I might actually like it more than the regular show potentially. Like the main character of the movie could just be the main character of the show. It would be equally as good. Uh, though I haven't watched Jujutsu Kaisen season 2 yet, so maybe I will withhold that judgment. But Jujutsu Kaisen Zero tells a complete story that if you've seen Jujutsu Kaisen, you can enjoy greatly. If you haven't seen the show, honestly, you could probably still enjoy it. It's a really good anime movie that fits in universe and actually has bearing kind of on the story and plot, and it's just great. I love that. It's a really good anime movie, and I love the way that anime movies have kind of come alive and had a little more relevance to the plot of their shows instead of just being irrelevant side stories that don't really seem to fit anywhere. So, yeah, watch Jujutsu Kaisen Zero. Highly recommend.
My number 2 is also Jujutsu Kaisen Zero. And honestly, it's everything Sean said is perfectly sums it up. You can watch it as a standalone movie. You could watch it as a prequel to season 1. You could watch it before you watch season 1. You could watch it after you watch season 2. Yeah, it's just fantastic. I also need to really start season 2 of Jujutsu Kaisen. So, that's on the 2024 list for me. And now we get to the best shows that we've watched. Our number ones. Turtle, you're number 1.
I think by process of elimination, y'all have figured it out. It's Jujutsu Kaisen Zero. This movie's friggin' awesome. I mean, I don't know what else to say that you guys have not already said, covering it in your number two slots. Again, another Mappa. Jujutsu Kaisen season one, I really enjoyed, and when I finally got a chance to see Zero here as a prequel, I was just blown away. The animation is just incredible. With a movie budget, you can really step up your game, which Mappa did. and like you said, it's a complete story. It's in universe. It's a prequel to season one, so you could start with the movie. You could start with season one and then go back. Totally up to you. But it's great movie, great animation, great characters, great music. Just everything all around is incredible with this. So, Mappa taking up my 1 and 2 slots. They're doing a good job.
Sean, your number one show of the year.
Number one for me. This was so difficult to rank these top four. Honestly, I could have slotted just about anything into here. I think like even Chainsaw Man, my number four could have been my number one, or Jujutsu Kaisen Zero. The movie's so good, but I had to pick Vinland Saga. This story was just insane and crazy from beginning to end. I love the characters, like mentioned by Turtle before. I think the pacing had some issues. There were episodes that were very boring because all they were doing was walking. And then there were episodes where you're like, yeah, these two episodes could have just kind of been condensed into one. We would have gotten the gist of it. But like I said, when it's hitting on all cylinders, oh my gosh, it is one of the best shows on TV. So I desperately want to watch season two, and I gotta hand it to them. Congrats, Vinland Saga. I never heard of you before we started watching, really, but you have me sold as a fan.
And my show of the year is Chainsaw Man. It was the first show we watched for the podcast. It's honestly was one of the reasons that I wanted to start this podcast with the two of you, was because I was hearing about Chainsaw Man and how much hype it was getting. And I thought it'd be a great show to watch with you, the two of you. So, little bit of nostalgia factor into that, but I mean, honestly, it's just a great show. Like, for it being only a 12 episode season, like, I feel like I always want to watch the next episode. And Denji's that lovable idiot. And I mean, it's crazy how popular it is here in the States. And like, for the longest time, it's like, are we getting a season 2? Because it didn't do well in Japan. Um, I mean, we saw at Tecco how many people cosplaying in Chainsaw Man costumes, whether it be Power, Makima, Denji, Katana Man. Like, we saw everything. And they were all fantastic. But that show was just incredible, and I am so excited that we are getting more Chainsaw Man content in 2024 with the Chainsaw Man the movie Res arc coming to the big screens sometime this in 2024 here. So we might need to, the three of us, go see that movie and do like a rapid reaction to it afterwards.
I'm in. Sign me up.
Yup.
So just to recap, Turtle, your show of the year was
Show of the year for me, Jujutsu Kaisen Zero.
Sean,
Vinland Saga.
and for me, it was Chainsaw Man. Congrats to our winners.
Woohoo!
And boo the vending machine. Boo!
Shame. Shame. Shame.
Shame. Boxo has to walk the streets in shame.
Gonna make me start ranting again.
Let's move on.
Our next category is our waifu of the year. Sean, who is your waifu of the year?
While Vinland Saga was my number one show of the year, I'd say the one character who had an impact on me the most, or that maybe I felt like I could relate to the most in some ways, I don't know. I had to pick Denji from Chainsaw Man. This dude is off his rocker crazy. He's only motivated by the prospect at intimacy and food, pretty much. And like, there's just like something endearing about the character because he's not a bad guy, but you also feel very bad for him. Like, I'm not saying I pick him out of pity, but like I do pity him because his life is so screwed up. Also, side on Denji, he also is like part Pochita, and we love Pochita. So, I'm gonna give it to Denji.
My waifu of the year is from my number 3 show, Vinland Saga, and that is Askeladd. I feel like he was the character that I picked the most over the year to be my waifu of the week. And I know the two of you weren't always the biggest fan of Askeladd, given his dickheadness at times. But to me, he was such a great character. Like, yes, he was an asshole, but like he was always plotting something bigger. And like he was always like he always saw the big picture. And it was so cool to actually learn his backstory, why he acted the way he did, and like how he saw the world as a chessboard and would always be like 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone. Um I'm really bummed that we're not gonna be getting him in a season 2, because while we were watching the show, I was almost hoping he would be like our Vegeta. He'd be the asshole in the first season, and then everyone would sort of love him as the anti-hero in the later seasons. Turtle, your waifu of the year?
Though I placed Vinland Saga at number 5 on my list, my waifu of the year. All right, I confess, it's Boxo.
We knew it. We knew it. You're a closet fan. Once you're in the denial the most, often are hiding something.
It's not fucking Boxo. It's Thorkel. Obviously, the dude's ridiculous. He throws trees and impales people from like 3 football fields away. I mean, come on. How could you not pick Thorkel? I love the guy. He doesn't care that he's missing some fingers and an eye. He'll still kick your ass.
Now, before we continue with the anime discussion, the three of us all had our own list our own special list. And Turtle, why don't you tell us about your special list that you put together for our year end?
For those of you who don't know me very well, I am a heavy metal music fan. Typically, most of the stuff I listen to is, power metal, symphonic metal, and progressive metal. So, what I decided to do is compile my top 5 albums of 2023. So, for those of you who don't listen to this kind of music, maybe I'll surprise you with some pretty cool stuff. Most of the stuff is on the more progressive side. So, not so much screamy vocals as, singing and whatnot. There might be a little screaming in there because, let's face it, sometimes in metal, you got to yell. But my number 5 album for the year is the brand new Earth Side album, Let the Truth Speak. This band is a somewhat newer and obscure kind of group. They only have 2 albums. Their first album was like, what was it, 2015 or something? And it took until 2023 for them to release their second album. But my goodness, both albums are incredible. Earthside's a really cool band. They like to use instruments and vocalists from all around the world. The band itself is traditionally a like instrumental, and they'll just have a bunch of guest singers come in to do songs with vocals. They'll do songs without vocals, just instrumental. Absolutely beautiful songwriting, incredible musicianship, great players. Check them out. My number 4 is the second solo album by Ray Alder. If you don't know who Ray Alder is, he is the main vocalist for Fate's Warning, as well as Redemption. Until recently, he has left Redemption, and I believe Fate's Warning may be officially retired? Question mark. But Ray is just a classic, metal vocalist. He's been in the scene forever, and he's just so good. As he gets older, his voice is just like a fine wine. It ages, and it's beautiful. And this guy could sing anything. Mary Had a Little Lamb, and I'd be in love with it. So, Ray, good on you. I love you. Number 3, Within Temptation, Bleed Out. I forgot this band existed. I'm gonna be honest. I was into them in their early days, and I fell off, and I forgot they were a thing. And our good friend Greg turned me on to their most recent album, Bleed Out, which came out not too long ago. And I was just really impressed on how Sharon sounds on here. Really good, great band. They're more of a power metal slash symphonic metal vibe. Give them a shot if you're not familiar with them. This is a great place to start. Really strong album. Number 2 for me, definitely on the progressive side, Haken with their newest album, Fauna. I was lucky enough to see these guys live with our buddy Greg and a friend of his from work. Really good, really really good. Wasn't super familiar with them. I knew like one of their albums, but we got tickets. We got to meet the band beforehand. Really cool guys. They're from the UK. super nice, and they put on a great show. They're really good live, just what you hear on the disc. Really great album, so check them out if you're not familiar. But my number one for the year is Riverside with their newest album, ID Entity or Identity. I'm not sure how you say that. Um, wow, Riverside. Again, I got to see them while they were touring for this toward the beginning of the year here, and I knew of them. I had heard a few songs from them, but I didn't know them that well. And I think they played most of the new album live. I was just so blown away. I had to like go out and get it and listen to everything that they were doing. So really really strong album. They've been sort of quiet for a number of years, and this is sort of like a comeback for them. So it's really good. It definitely has on a couple of the tracks a little bit of an '80s vibe. So if that's something you're kind of into, I'd say give this a shot, and it might get you pulled in, and you might be enjoying Riverside.
Thanks, Turtle. That's an amazing list. And you and I actually saw Riverside together, and that was a fantastic show.
It was, wasn't it?
And we got to see the Siberium duo.
That's right. I forgot they were there. Yeah, they were
Which,
the act.
yes, granted, it was only half of the normal Siberium, but those guys were also great to hear.
I would love if they would come like as a whole group, like here to Pittsburgh area somewhere, so we could go see them.
I agree. I 100% agree. Now we get back to the anime talk with our favorite episode of the year. And my favorite episode of the year is honestly the reason why I picked us watching this show, and that is Vinland Saga, episode 24, End of the Prologue. When I was looking for what show that I wanted to watch next for the podcast, I was hearing buzz for Vinland Saga. So I'm like, oh, okay, let me check out the IMDb. And I was looking at the ratings for each episode. And the finale has a 9.9 out of 10 with 15,000 ratings on it. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, something is going on with this show. To be that highly rated with that many ratings, I knew that that was the show to pick next. And wow, did it not disappoint. It culminated that first season so well. And like I know when we were watching this show, we're like, okay, like after episode 6, we're like, oh yeah, that feels like the prologue. And they're like, oh no, no, no. End of season 1's the end of the prologue. We're just getting started here. And it was a perfect episode. Like part of me wants to go back and rewatch just that episode because of how well it tied everything, all the loose ends up, and opened things up for season 2. The shock, the twist, the action, yeah, it was just fantastic. Turtle, your episode of the year?
My episode of the year was kind of tough to pick. I was looking through our notes for this, and I'm staring at the list of shows that we watched, and I'm like, how am I supposed to pick one episode out of everything that we've covered? And then I went to Vinland Saga, and I went, yeah, no, the last episode, it's got to be. I mean, end of the prologue, episode 24. Again, uh, holy crap! I mean, that episode just has like so much weight. There's so much like everything built to that moment, and that's the moment that the glass tipped over and shit hit the fan. Like it was huge. It was a huge episode for the series, and it made the bad pacing of the show worth it to me to see everything build to this moment. I was on the edge of my seat, jaw on the floor, totally involved into what was going on. And this is what made me so hyped for season 2, cuz this show has had a lot of ups and downs with the pacing, and it's if not for the pacing, this show might be my number 1. Like it when it's good, it's good, but when it's bad. But this last episode is holy crap.
Sean, your episode of the year?
And for me, it's definitely that episode of Vinland Saga. You know where the Vikings kill everyone in the village? No, I'm just kidding. It's
It's the Anne episode, right?
it's the Anne episode. Yeah, my favorite episode. No, I'm kidding. Of course, it's a clean sweep from the group here. Episode 24, end of the prologue for Vinland Saga. just this like sure you could argue that some of the anime are better, but like we watched 24 episodes of this series, and for 24 episodes the payoff is there. It's about the payoff, right? You know, we Mike and I are wrestling fans, and you watch a feud go for 2 to 3 months, and then you have that blow off match where they do something crazy, and you're like, man, there could be guys who actually have a better match on this card. Like, you're like, it's a more exciting match, more cool moves. But if the story's not there, then you don't care as much. And boy, the story was there, the execution was there. Like Askeladd going down like a madman, absolutely insane. I loved everything about episode 24 of Vinland Saga, and I'm so excited to watch season 2 eventually. So yeah, clean sweep from the crew.
Next, our favorite thing we've watched, not for this podcast. Turtle, what was the favorite thing you watched this year?
Favorite thing, not for the podcast, is a show that is still ongoing that I'm still watching. It's Free Ren Beyond Journey's End. I don't remember how I heard of the show, but I had heard that it was really promising. So I started watching it, and I love the show. I love it to death. As of this recording, it's still ongoing, but it's my favorite thing to look forward to on a week to week basis. I can't wait for the next episode to come out, and I haven't felt that way about an anime in a really long time. So it's Free Ren. It's really good.
Sean?
I'm kind of gonna pick two here. Number one, we were picking this favorite thing we watched not for the show. I was thinking like favorite anime. So like my favorite anime that I've watched not for the show, like outside of here, was probably the newest season of Demon Slayer. Um, it was really dang good. I watched a decent number of good anime this year, but I didn't watch a lot of side anime. I watched a lot of what we watched for this. So my favorite anime for the year outside of this was probably the new season of Demon Slayer. My favorite thing I've watched outside of anime though is probably seasons 1 and 2 of the new Chucky series. I'm a huge Child's Play and Chucky fan, and I absolutely love just like everything Chucky. I actually love the campiness, the goofiness, like the comedy. It's like horror comedy, and I just loved it. I haven't watched season 3 yet because by the time I caught up, they were only 1 or 2 episodes in, and I said no, I'm gonna save season 3 and binge it later. So yeah, highly recommend the Chucky series.
And I actually don't know if I watched any side anime this year. And so I'm cheating here. I didn't pick an anime for the favorite thing I watched, not for the show. And my wife and I started watching Doctor Who for the first time this year. And we're talking modern Doctor Who. We're not talking about the OG Doctor Who back from the 60s. We're talking about the newer stuff, starting with the Ninth Doctor. And we watched from the Ninth Doctor, and we completed the run of the 11th Doctor, and we just started the run of the 12th Doctor. But I have to say, I loved the ninth through the 11th Doctor. Like, people are like, oh, who's your favorite Doctor? And, like, I always pick the 10th Doctor, David Tennant, as my favorite. But then I look back at, like, the episodes for the ninth Doctor, Christopher Eccleston, and just Are You My Mummy? Those 2 episodes were just incredible. And for him only having one season, he had a lot of incredible episodes in his one season. And David Tennant had amazing seasons. And Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor, he was also great. Like, Matt Smith probably had the best companions in Rory and Amy. But I just like that show was a little slow to start with the beginning of the Ninth Doctor, but wow. Like, there'd be nights where we would watch 2 or 3 episodes, and like it's like, all right, we need to stop because we need to go to bed and wake up for work in the morning. But yeah, Doctor Who, if you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend checking out the newer stuff. I've heard the old stuff doesn't hold up as well, but yeah, Doctor Who, I'm amazed by it. I went out and bought all the commander decks for Magic for the Doctor Who set. And yeah, watch Doctor Who. You'll love it if you love sci fi. Sean, why don't you tell us about your special list?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to pick for my list, but if you listen to the podcast, you know that I love travel. So I said, you know what? This isn't a travel blog, but I'm going to give you my top 5 vacations of the year that I have taken. And so if you're like, wow, Sean over here taking 5 vacations, I'm like, it depends what you define as a vacation. But yes, I am very blessed in life to be able to take vacations. My job affords me a lot of vacation time. My wife's job affords her a lot of vacation time. So, while we don't make like a ton of money, we do have a lot of time. So, I'm gonna give an honorable mention number 6. Trip to New York City for my uncle's birthday. Saw a show off Broadway called "The Play Where Everything Goes Wrong" or something like that. That was a ton of fun. Had some good food. Got some New York pizza. Would have maybe been in my top 5, but my flight got canceled on the way home. Had to burn an extra vacation day of work, and I spent a full day riding the train, which is actually where I watched almost all of the most recent season of Demon Slayer. That's the honorable mention. Number 5, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. I talked about this on the podcast, but if you missed it, I have a few highlights. Took a historical tour of the hotel. They have a place called the Vault where they buy single barrels of whiskey, and I did a whiskey tasting there. There's a concert that I went to. I cannot remember the name of the band, but everyone was there in costume because it was on Halloween, so it was super fun. And just driving through the mountainscapes, the Rocky Mountains at the beginning of winter, or I guess the end of fall, were very beautiful and something I will remember. Oh, didn't get to talk about all the elk that I saw. Tons of elk. They walked right up to the property. I was probably standing 40 feet from a whole family of elk. It was very fun. Number 4, this is a bizarre concept, but uh, the Pittsburgh Japanese Culture Society puts on an event. They used to put on an event every year called the Sangawa Project, and this year Sangawa has returned. This year in February, doing a little plug here for the Pittsburgh Japanese Culture Society. It's an 18 plus convention with a lot of you can do a lot of drinking too if you do 21 if you're over 21. It is so much fun just to get together with a bunch of older nerds and nerd out for a weekend. It's super fun. It's going to be at the Hilton DoubleTree in downtown Pittsburgh. Check it out. But they didn't have it this past year. So our friends, planned by my wife, we came with an event called Fogawa. Fo meaning fake. So fake Gawa. Songawa, by the way, means 3 rivers. So I guess we called it fake rivers. But whatever. Anyway, Fogawa, we just did other things we do at Songawa. We played games. We made panels, bizarre panels that were adult themed, kind of, but not super adult themed, but pretty adult themed. We drank a lot. We brought a bunch of Japanese spirits with us and drank those. So broke up in a bottle of Yamazaki that I'd been saving, and just like spent a weekend with some friends at an Airbnb and like screwed around talking about anime and stuff and playing games. It was very fun and would do again. Number 3 was my trip to Phoenix. I've never been out to the city. Gonna rapid fire some highlights. Went to Medieval Times for the first time. Very fun. Went to their Ren Fair, much better than Pittsburgh's. Went to a great immersive bar that was like pirate themed. The cocktails were phenomenal, out of this world. I enjoyed the wonderful January weather. I had great food, especially the Mexican food. Went to a place called Bam Kazam, which is almost like a bunch of rapid fire escape rooms where you do almost like an escape room in the course of 5 minutes. Um, and then I also attended a LARP, which I don't love attending LARP, but I attended it anyway. Number 2, romantic adventure getaways, the King Louis Suite. This is an escape bed and breakfast in Ohio, where you can take like you and a person can go and enjoy a romantic weekend of solving puzzles and doing intimate activities as you solve these puzzles, such as crawling through a tunnel and finding there are a couple of massage chairs there, so you sit in the massage chair and enjoying a nice massage, and they have an incredible bathtub that I think when I looked it up, it costs like $15,000. So you get to hang out in a bathtub that's $15,000. I'm going to another one for my birthday, and I'm super looking forward to it because they have more than one like room there. So it's gonna be super fun. I enjoyed it a lot. And number one, of course, if you heard the podcast at all, I went to Japan. I don't know what else I can say about it. Japan rocks. Would would love to go again someday. I just gotta save the money. And those were Sean's top 5 vacations of the year.
Our next category is anime we wish we watched. Sean, what are some animes that you wish you watched this year?
Yeah, I'll get us started off here. I'm gonna throw two out there. Number one, I'm about 2 episodes away from finishing. Don't Toy with Me, Miss Nagatoro season 2. So I'm really looking forward to finishing that. It kind of just slipped away from me though. I also started. I'm about 6 episodes into Tonikawa Over the Moon for You. I think it's very interesting so far. I like it a lot. I'm only 6 episodes in, and I want to see where that goes. And then the next one is we were actually discussing this one beforehand. The 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You. The title sounds fun, and I definitely want to check it out, especially if there's an English dub. Yeah, I'm a filthy casual. I like dubbed anime more.
So, show that I need to finish. I watched the first 6 or 7 episodes on a plane ride to Disney World, and that would be Near Automata version 1.1a. I need to just finish episodes 8 through 12. At the time when I was watching it, only episode 8 was out that I still need to watch. They put out episodes 9 through 12 recently. Really follows the game really well. I love the game. I keep telling Sean and Turtle and a couple other people that as RPG fans, they really owe it to themselves to play Near Automata. Fantastic game, tons of replay value. Yeah, so need to finish that. And then I feel really terrible about these next two that I haven't watched yet that I really need to watch. And that would be Demon Slayer Season 3 and Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. Things just got crazy in my life from a personal standpoint, so it's hard to really want to sit down and watch anime with everything else going on. But yeah, I'm really hoping to sit down and watch these two shows here in early 2024. How about you, Turtle?
I don't really have a lot for this one because I don't watch TV. I don't watch a lot of movies. When I want to watch something, it's either, the YouTube channels I follow or I watch anime. And I like to watch a lot of anime. So there really isn't anything that I haven't seen that I want to. But for this, I'm just going to go Vinland Saga Season 2. I really do. I wanted to dive into it right away, but I've held off for the podcast's sake and for you listeners. So my choice of what I want to watch that I didn't is Vinland Saga Season 2.
Our next category, and this should come as no surprise, as usually before we start talking about whatever anime we're watching, we always talk about what video games we're currently playing. So we are giving our top 3 video games of the year. Now, these games do not need to be from 2023, as you will see with Turtle with some of our lists. And I know personally, I did not get to some of the big 2023 games. I didn't get to Baldur's Gate 3 yet. I didn't get to Alan Wake 2. I didn't even get to Tears of the Kingdom. But my number 3 game of the year is God of War Ragnarok. I got this for Christmas in 2022. I started it in around that time, but really did the bulk of my playing of that game in early 2023, and I loved it. I loved the 2016 God of War. I thought it was one of the best games of that year, and the polish that they put on this new game, the fact that you could like visit all the 9 realms, the story was fantastic. And then I went back and started playing the Valhalla DLC after that was announced in December, and it just reminded me of how good this game is. The combat is just fantastic. And honestly, that DLC is probably some of the best DLC I've played in 2023. Like, the fact that it's free, awesome. It's a roguelike. I really love roguelikes. You look at my Steam Deck, and I'm pretty sure 75% of the games that are installed on there are roguelikes. My number 2, Final Fantasy 16. Wow, what a game. And this was another one of those games where like I started it, it was like hard for me to really get into it. I played Diablo 4, finished the campaign for that, got back into 16, and I don't know what it was in that break, but it hooked me, and it hooked me hard. Like, once I started playing it, I don't think I put it down for anything else. And the story was fantastic. The combat system was incredible. The music, that game might have the best music of any game in 2023. Like, you get into a boss fight, and I'm just start jamming. It's like, yeah, let's go. Come on, give me more boss fights because I want to jam to this song. And my number one, my game of the year, Spider-Man 2. I loved the first Spider-Man. I loved Miles Morales because they tweaked so much to like it felt like they really tweaked and perfected the flaws from the first Spider-Man game. And Spider-Man 2 is the perfect PS5 game. It the load times are insane. It's it's insane how fast they are. Like, you hit the fast travel button, you hold it in to travel to where you're going, and you're loaded in within like 3 seconds. And they said they could have made it faster, but the story was fantastic. I love the combat in those games. Uh I really love the Miles Morales character in those games. I found myself playing with Miles more than Peter. I thought his moveset was much more fun to play with than Peter's. And yeah, but yeah, I'm very much looking forward to whatever comes next from Insomniac for the Spider-Man. I have a feeling, I hope we get DLC. It left it open for DLC, and I really hope we sort of get a Miles Morales spin-off like we did with 1, where we have a spin-off for Spider-Man 2, where it's a little bit of a smaller game, but it's still really fantastic. Turtle, your games of the year.
My top 3 games of the year, they're not all from this year. They're spread out actually. For those who, if for some reason you don't know, I run my own YouTube channel, RPG Treasure Trove, because I love RPG games. So on that channel, I got to experience some games that I've never played before and probably never would have if not for my channel. So my number 3 is Fallout 1 for the PC. It's an oldie. And typically, like that style of game, it's not something I would normally do, and I don't really play like PC games. Typically, I like a controller in my hand. But that was a really fun experience. I really enjoyed the story, the world, as you know, a post-apocalyptic world, the fallout of nuclear war. It was a fun game, a fun setting, and I'm excited to go back to that world to play some of the sequels down the road. My number 2 game for the year, Super Mario RPG. We played the original one. I had a great time. After we beat it, now all the episodes were uploaded to YouTube. They announced and released a remake, which I was really mad. I wish I would have known that they were going to do that because I would have loved to have played the remake for the channel, but whatever. I got to experience Super Mario RPG for the first time. The original, the OG. It's a fun game. It's not really long. If you're a Mario fan, and you're not into RPGs, give it a try. You might like this one. If you're an RPG fan, you haven't played it, like me until this year, get the remake. It seems really good. I have to get it myself yet, but it's a fun game. I recommend. But my number 1 for the year, Final Fantasy 16. It is rare that I give myself time personally to play a video game to completion. A lot of time I'll start something, usually it's an RPG because that's primarily what I like to play, and I'll get a quarter of the way through, halfway through. I'll enjoy the game, but for one reason or another, I'll put it down and never finish it. This game, I made a point to play through the entire thing. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really good story. It's actually story driven, which I feel like not a lot of games are focused on the story so much anymore. It's like, just the gameplay, which it has good gameplay. I prefer turn based. I'm not a big fan of action combat, but this combat system is really good and it's really fun. So it made me branch out a little bit, but I highly recommend Final Fantasy 16 if you've not played it, or for whatever reason you didn't want to, give it a shot at least. I loved it. I thought it was great. That's my number 1 of the year, Final Fantasy 16.
Sean?
Number 3 is the first Atelier Ryza game. I played this when I started on a plane ride on vacation, and I could not put it down. I understand why this series got 3 games, and I am going to play the second one probably on my next trip to Phoenix this in this coming year here in 2024. I had a blast. I think Ryza is a fantastic protagonist. I love that whenever like the alchemy doesn't make sense, she pretty much just says she's like, Jesus, just alchemy. It doesn't have to make sense. Like she just acknowledges that there are plot holes and it's funny. I I love all the characters. I love the world. I love that there wasn't necessarily a traditional villain. Like you meet a couple characters and you're like, oh, are these characters gonna turn on us? No, it's about coming of age, identity, exploring and learning new things. There are a lot of fantastic themes, and I understand that maybe I'm not the target audience because it definitely seems like it's more towards like a young adult audience. I enjoy that kind of content all the same. So, Totally Rise had a lot of positive themes, and I can't wait to play the second one. Number two on the year, I mentioned this so many times, Final Fantasy 14. I'm a regular player of the MMORPG. They didn't have a new expansion this year, but I they gave me enough content to stay interested. While my other MMO, Destiny, Destiny 2, I fell off a little bit with that one. I haven't played it in a few months because it's just harder for me to keep up with it. Final Fantasy 14 has allowed me to like I feel comfortable leaving it for periods of time and coming back. And there's always something I can just pick up and do. Like, hey, I need to burn like a half hour. I just pop in, do a couple things, and pop out, and it's real easy. So, honestly, 14. When the new expansion comes out next year, I bet you it's going to be my number one game next year. But who knows? And number one for me this year, I mentioned this one even more than Final Fantasy 14, and it's Baldur's Gate 3. I still haven't beaten it actually. I'm in Baldur's Gate. I have some stuff to do, but everything's so intense from here on out where I am. Like I really have to be in the mood to like actually play it because all the battles are tough now, and it's just like we're hitting the climax of the story, and part of me doesn't want it to be over. Like when you get to the end of something and you don't want to finish it because then it's over. That's almost how I feel about it. I'll be very disappointed when the ride's over, but that just means I should play it again.
This year was a great year for gaming. I'm very excited to play some of the games that I missed this year. I should say this past year.
Yeah, they really need to slow it down with the games. Like, I'm number 3 on my list is a game that's like not even close to new. It's a PS4 game. Like, I'm not caught up on the modern generation of gaming. I'm still playing PS4 games.
And now it is time for my special list. And this should come to a shock to no one. It is my favorite wrestling moments of 2023. Number 5, Vince McMahon gets the boot. WrestleMania 39, Night 1, was incredible. You could tell that Triple H had his hands on it and, like, was finally getting to do things his way. And then Night 2, the rumors were Vince McMahon was coming back and the air was sucked out of the room. Night 2 just felt off. And Vince was back for a couple months and everything went to shit. Everything that Triple H was building to just got thrown in the trash. And then they sold to Endeavor to form TKO, the merger of WWE and UFC. And TKO kicked out Vince McMahon, and it was incredible. And now it's Triple H running everything. It feels like the old black and gold days of NXT. The wrestling is fantastic. The feuds are fantastic. Honestly, I haven't been this excited for wrestling since the Attitude Era, the Ruthless Aggression Era. Like, it feels to me like WWE is can't miss programming right now. And that makes me extremely happy as someone who has watched WWE my entire life. Number 4, and this is more because I was there and the show was just so good live, and that would be WWE Payback 2023 here in Pittsburgh. And mainly, I am talking about the steel cage match between Trish and Becky. Just how violent that was, how great it was. Just incredible. Watching Trish Stratus perform again at the age of 48, 49, however old she might be, was incredible. Just like she still has it. She looks like she's still in her 20s and 30s. Like, incredible. Just an incredible performer. but mainly it's the Steel City street fight they did between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and the Judgment Day. And there were so many fun nods to Pittsburgh. Like the two of Sammy and Kevin Owens got knocked into the penalty box and they came up wearing Penguin jerseys. Kevin Owens was bleeding all over his jerseys. They had hockey sticks in hand, wearing hockey gloves, and like they dropped the stick, they dropped the gloves to start fighting. Incredible. And then like right in front of me, they came into the crowd, they were fighting in the crowd, and then Kevin Owens did a senton off the barricade a section over for me. And it was just so much fun, so cool to see live. My number 3, Sami Zayn turns on the bloodline. Just, you want to talk about long-term storytelling. You had Sammy like trying to like hook up with the bloodline, everything with like acknowledging Roman. He was so seen originally as like the jokester of the group, and then at War Games he like gained their trust and they all loved him. And then Roman at Royal Rumble decided to take out Kevin Owens and told Sammy to take him out, and Sammy's like, no, I can't do it. He's still my best friend. He turns on the bloodline, leading to an incredible match between Roman and Sammy in Montreal, Sammy's hometown. And then we get the main event moment of night 1 of WrestleMania of Kevin Owens and Sammy winning the tag titles from the Usos. Just incredible. One of my favorite moments. I've always loved Sami Zayn whenever he was NXT. Just a perfect babyface. So I really hope he finally gets his flowers and wins a world championship here in the next year or two, because he more than deserves it. My number 2, again, this is more personal than anything that happened in the wrestling world. I got tickets for WrestleMania 40. All my life, I've wanted to go to a WrestleMania. And it would always just be like, oh, no, it would never work. And they announced WrestleMania 40 would be in Philadelphia this year. And it's like, I could drive to WrestleMania. I don't need to fly. I don't need to worry about like plane tickets. I don't need to worry about packing back, like checking luggage or whatever. I could drive to WrestleMania, have my car for easy parking and everything. And I am going to WrestleMania 40 both nights. I got the combo package for SmackDown, the Hall of Fame, NXT TakeOver, and Raw. And I am so looking forward to WrestleMania weekend to finally go to WrestleMania. Like, it is a dream come true, as silly as that might sound. Before I get to my favorite wrestling moment of the year, I want to talk about my least favorite wrestling moment of the year, and that's falling out of love with AEW. I would go to all the AEW shows here in Pittsburgh when they would come through. I always felt Dynamite was can't miss, and things just fell off with me with AEW this year. Just, they didn't really care about the stories. It was more about the wrestling, which is fine because the wrestling was still great. But then there would be just like predictable booking, one-off matches that should have been built to on pay-per-views, and then everything that came out, you never know what is true, what is not true with the young guys not wanting to listen to the veterans. It's like, I get it. Some of you guys were great over in Japan, but like, to the regular John Doe wrestling fan, they don't know you. Listen to the people that have done it for a long time. To just not listen to Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, love them or hate them, CM Punk, like, those guys know things. And like, you start seeing it in the business, and it's a real shame because I love Bryan Danielson, and like, if to me it feels like even he can't save AEW right now. And my favorite wrestling moment of the year, hell freezes over. CM Punk returns to WWE, and he returned at Survivor Series in Chicago, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, maybe he'll like. It's like, is he going to return? Is he not going to return? Things ended so badly between the two parties. There was the lawsuit, between him and the doctor that works for WWE, who still works for WWE. You have things how they ended between Triple H and CM Punk last time, and the fact that he's back is just mind-blowing to me. And I'm really hoping he's still with the company come WrestleMania 40, because the dude deserves to main event WrestleMania. I am so excited to see him again in WWE ring. I saw his last WWE match at Royal Rumble back in 2013, and it's just crazy to think, or no, 2014. Royal Rumble 2014 was his last match in WWE, and here we are 10 years later, and he's back in WWE. Just incredible. Our final category is anime we want to cover in 2024. Turtle, what are some animes you hope we cover in 2024 for the podcast?
I think I've mentioned this fairly recently. Yu Yu Hakusho. I love it. You guys haven't seen it. We should totally watch it. Yes, it's old. I don't care. It's good.
You mean the live action, right?
No, no, we don't have to watch that. We can maybe watch that, but no, I'm talking the original, like 90s anime. Yeah, some people this is what I don't understand. Some people are like, "Oh, well that's old." Yeah, so what? It's good. You can't just because something's old doesn't make it not good. And sure, it's a little on the longer side, especially compared to stuff that we're covering here.
Yeah, I looked it up, Turtle. 112 episodes.
And each one better than the last.
There are 52 weeks in a year, and we cover 2 episodes a week.
Well, we can adjust the format for that.
I
You know, what I
think
mean,
I think we would have to rename this the Yu Yu Hakusho podcast.
we could do that. It's a new year.
Your new podcast.
But yeah, it's part of it's a joke, but part of it's not. Yu Hakusho is great. Yeah, we would have to adjust, but I love the show to death, and I want a reason to watch it again. Plus, I think you guys should see it. But besides that, that time I got reincarnated as a slime. I'm a big fan of that. There's a season 3 coming out. I think this year, so super excited for that. And I mentioned it once already in this episode here. Free Ren Beyond Journey's End. I can't get enough of that show. It's really really good.
Sean, what are some animes you hope we cover in 2024?
I was looking up some websites just to see what is new that's coming out next year. Like, what? Give me some brand new anime, some I've never seen before, really. And the first one I'm throwing out there is Bartender Glass of God. And Bartender is very interesting to me. I read a couple chapters of the manga and I watched the first episode of the original anime. And I don't know if this is a sequel or if it's a remake, but essentially it's about a high class bartender, and I think he talks about um, drinking and liquor and cocktails, and it tells you a bunch of interesting things from like a cocktail bartender's point of view. And I think it'd be kind of interesting from a educational standpoint. If they teach us cocktail recipes, I think that could be really fun to try them. In addition to that, I I kind of just want to see what it's all about. I heard the original anime was pretty solid, so I'm gonna take a look. The next one that really interests me is the remake of the series called Kinnikuman. They're kind of like remaking the series, or they're animating like a prequel arc. I'm not 100% sure, but Kinnikuman is essentially pro wrestling, the anime, and it's a little more than that because there are like aliens and things like that in it. But it's a pro wrestling anime, and as I think I'd mentioned before, they had Ultimate Muscle, which was a show on the Fox box back when 4Kids started doing the dubs, and it is a sequel to Kinnikuman that takes place many years later with Kinnikuman's son, Kid Muscle. And the show is absolutely terrible, but it's a wild ride, especially if you like wrestling. It's goofy as heck. So I wouldn't mind checking out Kinnikuman just to see the anime wrestling in action.
Wrestling anime, you say? I am intrigued.
Let's torture Turtle.
I'm like, what is happening?
You know what? I'm open to new experiences, new shows. I'm not against it.
This is the year we get Turtle to watch wrestling, everyone.
Just the anime version.
No, we're getting him into WWE.
Oh, okay.
We're going to start the Wrestling Banter podcast.
Oh Lord, here we go.
Also, that bartender anime sounds like they need to bring on me on for Mike's Beer of the Week. My list is a little longer, and I feel like that's expected as I have the least amount of anime watching background. I have 5 on my list that I'd be interested in us covering at some point. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. Haven't watched any of it. I've always heard great things. I know the two of you gush about it.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're getting a season 3, it's like, maybe we should watch this show. Next, Attack on Titan. I've only ever watched the first season, and I know it got a little wonky after that with time skips and everything, but part of me wants to go back and watch the entire thing. Mob Psycho 100. I know that will make Sean very happy with that suggestion. I know you're a big fan.
Love it.
The Turtle, I feel like you would be a fan of this next one, with it being in the One Piece universe. Monsters, 103 Mercies, Dragon Damnation, and my final thing I would like to watch would be Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2. I think we have a great year ahead of us with some of the animes we can pick to watch for the show.
I'm very excited for what's to come.
Thank you all for joining us this week as we had our Banter Blitz Banter of the Year special. We would also like to thank you all, everyone, for joining us week in and week out this past year. We hope we have brought you some laughs, some smiles, some new anime to watch, and we hope you join us next week for episode 40 of the Anime Banter podcast, where we will begin our watch of Free Ren, Beyond Journey's End.
Yes.
Please give us a 5-star review on all platforms that allow reviews. If you are listening on YouTube, please like the video, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Turtle, do you have anything you would like to plug?
As always, you can find me on my YouTube channel, RPG Treasure Trove. I sit down with a friend, couch co-op style, and play through an RPG game.
Sean, do you have anything you would like to plug?
You've listened to the Deepman Files.
The Anime Banter podcast can be found on Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube. Thank you all for joining, and we will talk to you next week.